right. Hello, everybody. This is Tyler with Truffle Shuffle. Today, I will be teaching you how to make a risotto Milanese. Okay? So, we're going to be doing this guy over here. If this is your first time doing a Truffle Shuffle class, I'm one of the co-founders here at Truffle Shuffle and one of the chefs. And we're going to show you how to cook this recipe from start to finish. Right? That way we can really explain all the little nuances that go into cooking a dish like this. So because this is a recorded class, right, feel free to fast forward or rewind, right, or pause me at any point in time. So just keep thinking of that as you're cooking. If you get a little bit behind me, don't worry, just hit pause, right? So with that, you want to go ahead and, as you can see, I got the recipe card right over here. Okay, and the way that we organize these recipes is truly the same way that we train chefs in a professional restaurant. So we have the section that we call our mise en place, which means all your equipment that you will need, okay? And it's kind of an all-encompassing term. It literally means everything in place. So your aprons, right, whatever cocktails or glasses of wine that you might have will fall in that category. Even though they're not listed, okay? So I'll just go over our mise en place real quick just to familiarize everyone with what I'm working with. So the first thing I will need is a cutting board, okay? Got this beautiful cutting board right here. And then we will also need a lovely cheese grater. All right. After that, I do have a knife, okay? Believe it or not. And we will need a large pan. So I got this guy right here. My nice large pan. Okay. I got a little 2-ounce ladle over here, as well as a medium sauce pot. Okay. And then next, I will need a wooden spoon. Okay. And I'm also going to need a 1-cup measuring cup. So next, I'm going to show you the ingredients over here. Okay. So in no particular order, we got some olive oil. Okay. Beautiful olive oil. If it's still solidified, honestly, that's just fine. That just means it's cold. Okay, as it warms up, it will go back to its liquid state. All right, we also have a shallot. And we have a little bag of Spanish saffron. Okay, this is really, really beautiful stuff. If you've never worked with saffron before, it's got a lovely, earthy, fruity flavor to it and aroma. And then it's got a super bright yellow color. And it's a very, very interesting ingredient. Every single strand of saffron is a little pistil of the flower. It's pretty amazing. So we're going to use that as a classic ingredient to Milanese style risotto. It's going to give us this super bright yellow risotto that's going to be really exciting. So we also have a jar of aquarello risotto rice, right? Nice carnaroli risotto rice. We also have a bottle of champagne vinegar over here, okay? So after that, I have a stick of butter. Boom. And we've got a little piece of Parmigiano, okay? A little Parmesan cheese. We got some bone broth, okay? And I also have a bunch of chives, okay? So that is all our mise en place and all of our ingredients, okay? And so with that, you know I'm not able to send you alcohol, unfortunately, right? Because the law does not allow me to do that, right? Like, what's up with that? But if you have any white wine on hand, it is a great addition, and I'm going to be using it over here for this risotto, okay, as a nice acidity. So I also have about 1.5 cups of water. So with that, I know you're all at home, but part of what we love doing in these cooking classes is bringing that energy, okay? So even if you're by yourself, okay, you got no one else there with you, I'm there with you, all right? So if you have all that mise en place and those ingredients and you are looking to get into cooking this dish, okay, I would love to see a thumbs up out there, all right? Oh, when I got DJ Drew in the house turning up that music, that's right. Oh. That's right. Okay, so it's very important as you're cooking to get in state, right, for cooking. Usually whenever I put on the apron, my brain immediately goes into chef mode, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is go to step 1 in our prep during our class, and that is to heat up this bone broth and this water together, okay? So I'm just going to come over here, grab that pot, right? And I'm going to open up that bag of bone broth, and again, we only need 3 cups of this bone broth, which is exactly how many cups is in this chicken broth that I'm using. But if you have a larger container of chicken broth, just measure out 3 cups, okay? So over here, got 3 cups of broth going right into my pot, okay? Beautiful. And then I'm also going to use 1.5 cups of water, okay? Let's come over here. Nice full cup. That's 1.5. All right. So I got the broth and the water in my pot. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring it to a boil. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring this pot of liquid to a boil over here. All right. And I want to bring it to a boil before I add my saffron into the pot, because it is really, I want it to be nice and hot, and that way when I add my saffron, I'm almost making a saffron tea almost, right? I don't necessarily want to add my saffron and then really boil it, because you really want to be delicate with the saffron. So go ahead, allow that broth to come to a boil. I'm going to let mine keep going over here, and again, once it comes to a boil, then we're going to add that saffron. All right, so that is step number 1. Step number 2 over here is this Parmigiano, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this Parmesan cheese, all right? And I'm just going to pop that Parmesan cheese directly onto my work surface. All right, so the type of Parmesan that I like to use over here is 24-month aged. Parmesan is differentiated by age. And so this style of Parmesan, personally, I really like because it's got that flavor and texture. So first thing you always want to do with working with any cheese is taste it. All right, so go ahead, grab that glass of wine, okay, or grab that cocktail, or just the cheese itself.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
And just eat a piece of that cheese, okay? DJ loves when he gets to watch me eat cheese and then I don't share any. So that's why I'm doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and grate up this cheese. All right, so come over here, grab that cheese grater. All right, and just grate this cheese directly into the cheese grater over there. Okay, so nice. Beautiful. So you have, I got that beautiful grated cheese. All right. And you want to go ahead and just place that cheese onto a nice bowl, right? Or a small plate or something like that. And just set it off to the side. Okay. So, again, come right over here. Cheese into my bowl or plate. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead, take that cheese, okay, and I'm going to set it off to the side. All right, so again, we're just going to use that later on in the recipe, okay, but that brings us directly to step 3 over here, okay, which is to dice up 3 ounces of this butter, okay. So the beautiful thing about this butter is that it gives us a ruler on the side of it, okay. So I'm going to come in here, and 3 ounces is 6 tablespoons, okay? So I'm going to cut away 2 tablespoons, right? And the other 3 ounces of butter, I'm just going to come over here and just, nice, remove that butter. And I'm going to dice it. And the reason why it's helpful to dice the butter is because it allows us to emulsify the butter into the risotto better, okay? if I just added this big piece of butter into the risotto rather, right? It wouldn't really melt down and emulsify as well, right? It would just kind of, it would take a long time, right? But we really want to be able to stir in smaller pieces of butter and really get that nice tight emulsification, okay? So we'll go ahead, grab a little bowl, okay? Or a little plate or something like that. I'm gonna pop all that butter into that bowl or plate, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and just place that into the fridge, okay? We'll place that butter in the fridge because we want to really make sure that we keep that butter nice and cold, okay? So that other small piece of butter that you may have over there, again, save it. You can use it for a future recipe, okay? But we only need about 3 ounces for this risotto, all right? So that brings us into step 4 in this recipe, which is to slice our beautiful chives, okay? And I just want to kind of note it over here. My bone broth over here, mine is frozen that I'm working with, right? So my bone broth and water are not yet boiling. If yours is boiling, just turn the heat off at this point and add your saffron, okay? I'll be there with you in about a minute or two. But if you're a little bit ahead of me, instead of just leaving that on and boiling down, just turn it off, add the saffron, and keep it off the heat, okay? So, I'll come over here, grab my chives, all right? Just remove those chives from that little paper towel, okay? And just fold that paper towel into a little rectangle, all right? Come over here, fold it into a little rectangle, okay, beautiful. And what I'm going to do next is go ahead and I'm going to take those chives and I'm going to roll the ends of my chives up in that paper towel, all right. I'll roll the ends of the chives up in that paper towel, okay. And then we'll come over here and just remove that little rubber band if you have one of those on your chives. And so the reason why you want to do this is that way you make sure that the chives don't really move around too much. If you got some chives like I do that aren't as long to get in the paper towel, honestly, we're still going to keep them in line over here. But it just helps you keep them together. Okay? So next, I'm going to take my non-knife hands, right? I'm going to curl my fingers in, and then take my knife and just thinly slice those chives, okay? Just a nice thin slice of those chives over there, all right? Beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and slice all these chives, okay? They give us a really nice little garnish, okay? They give us a really nice little garnish, and it's really going to allow the colors to pop on this risotto Milanese, which, like I said again, is going to be that bright yellow color, okay? So, again, just come on through. Slice those chives up. Excellent. And then with the tops of those chives, you can save those, right, for any type of future recipe that you would like. Okay. Just gonna set those off to the side. So next I'm gonna come over here, right, and just transfer these chives into a small bowl or onto a little plate or something like that. All right. So go ahead, grab these chives, transfer them into that small bowl or plate. Okay. And then there you have it. Our beautiful little sliced chives over there. Okay, looking absolutely stunning. So I'm just gonna set those off to the side as well. Okay, and so I got my chives nice and sliced up, and as I was slicing my chives, my broth and water has now come to a boil. Okay, so you can see over here, I just turned it off real quick, but my broth and my water is nice and hot at this point. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off, and I'm gonna add that beautiful saffron. Okay, and I'm just gonna let that saffron bloom. All right, and when we say bloom, that is taking many times a liquid, right? You can do it with oil too, and then getting it warm and adding your ingredient to that oil or liquid, right? And then that will extract the flavor from that ingredient. Like tea is a perfect example. We're blooming the tea. We're infusing the tea in it. So again, this is nice and hot, but I'm just gonna set that broth off to the side. Okay, just allow that saffron to bloom in there. All right, I'm gonna put my little ladle in there too. Right, put my little ladle in there, and we're just gonna allow this saffron to bloom in that pot. All right, so that brings us directly to step 5 in this recipe, okay, which is to mince up that shallot. All right, so what I'd like you to do is go ahead, grab that shallot, pop it on your cutting board, okay, and just trim off the top and the root of that shallot, okay. And I'm just going to come over here and just split that shallot in half across the root. Okay? Perfect. So now, just come in here and peel down that shallot. Right? Sometimes the shallots, even the first 2 layers can be a little papery. Right? Let's go ahead, remove both of those. And all we want to do is just get something that's nice and clean for us to work with, right? So, beautiful. So again, get those shallots nice and cleaned off. With those little shallot peels, you can use them in broth, right? You can toss them in compost, either or, right? They're a great addition to any vegetable broth that you might want to make. So, next, I'm going to show you how to mince up this shallot, okay? So come in here, and with the root end facing away from you, what I'd like you to do is make vertical slices in that shallot, but we're not going to go all the way through the root, okay? So just to show you, I'm just going to come over here. All right, make vertical slices in that shallot, okay? And then turn that shallot 90 degrees and slice that shallot across the grain as thin as you possibly can. All right? And if you're making this recipe in the future, if you don't have access to shallot, you can use onions, right? Or you can use onions. Shallots work great, right? I like the shallots because they add a little bit of that kind of garlicky flavor, a hint of it, which I like in this dish. So, again, coming through vertically. This is where it helps to have a sharp knife, okay? Turn that guy, come across the grain as thin as you can, okay? Nice. All right. So, again, with those little ends of the shallot, you can go ahead and pop them in that little kind of area that you got with those shallot trims and those chive tips, right? You can make vegetable broth out of those. It tastes great. So I'm going to come over here next, And I'm going to chop these shallots really nice and small. Okay, so with one hand on the kind of tip of my knife and one hand on the handle, I'm just going to rock my knife back and forth. Okay. And I'm going to get these shallots chopped up really nice and small. Okay. And basically, I want my shallots to be smaller than the grains of rice. Okay. I'm going to be smaller than those grains of rice. Because when you're eating risotto, you don't want to bite into the shallot, right? You just want to feel the shallot, okay? So, again, just rock that knife back and forth. Get those shallots cut up nice and small. This is where, if you're experiencing any shallot tears, right? It might kind of come out a little bit. Little shallot tears. But, again, I'm just coming through, rocking my knife back and forth to get my shallots really nice and finely chopped, okay? So you can see over here, they're nice and small. They're all smaller than grains of rice, okay? I'm just going to set those shallots off to the side, okay? So, at this point, that brings us to the end of our prep during our class, okay? Again, from the top, we've got that broth nice and hot. We've got that saffron steeping in there. And you can already kind of see on my screen, I'm starting to get that beautiful yellow hue to it, right? So, I got that nice saffron going, okay? We also have our Parmesan cheese grated. Our butter is diced, right? Our chives are sliced. And that beautiful shallot is hashayed. Okay, so if you are there with me and you are ready to get cooking this risotto out there, okay, I want to see a nice thumbs up. Okay, get some energy over there. All right, let's see it. Oh. Nice. All right. So, now that I got this going, what I'm going to do next is actually get my risotto going over here. So, I want to come over here, grab that olive oil, okay? And the first thing I'm going to do is get my olive oil into my large saute pan, okay? And you'll notice over here, I'm using a large saute pan with 2-inch sides on it, right? And that's very helpful when you're making risotto. When you're making risotto, your pan has to be wide but shallow, right? You would honestly rather make this risotto in a saute pan than in a large pot, right? Because the sides, when they're tall like that, it makes it a little bit more difficult to stir, but also from an evaporation perspective, it doesn't work quite the same way. So you want nice shallow sides on whatever vessel you're cooking this risotto in, right? And also too, with that, you want the vessel to be wide enough, okay? You want that rice to basically lay down in one even layer. That way when we're cooking this risotto, we're really allowing it to take that broth, kind of reduce down, we're stirring it, right? These are all the techniques that we're really gonna need to focus on for this risotto. Okay, so, come over here, get that olive oil into that pan. All right. And I'm gonna come over here and just transfer that minced shallot directly into that olive oil. All right. Just go ahead, pop that minced shallot into that olive oil, okay? And again, I'm on medium-low to low heat. And we're just gonna stir these shallots in, right? Until they get nice and soft. Okay, until those shallots are getting nice and soft over there. So, in order to assist with this process of getting these shallots nice and soft, I've got a packet of Milanese truffle salt. Okay. You can find it on our website if you don't have any, right? You can use kosher salt or any other kind of salt for this. for that matter. So I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna get up nice and high, get my seasoning on, which you can see over here. Right, make sure your hand is outside of, oh my gosh, that window. All right. Ooh. Wow. And that pinch of salt will really help us make sure that we got a nice baseline layer of seasoning. Okay? So, you'll notice over here, I'm continuously stirring my shallots. Okay? And I don't want to get any color on these shallots. Alright? I want to keep them blonde. Right? We're just sweating these shallots. We're not caramelizing them. If we caramelize the shallots, the flavor is going to be much, much more pronounced. Alright? So go ahead, stir those shallots. And mine have gotten to a point where they're exactly where I want them. Alright? You can see right here, they're looking absolutely stunning. Alright? Oh my gosh. Wow. So, now that we got our shallots nice and sweated out, I'm just going to come over here and we're going to add our rice into our saute pan. Okay? So again, I'm using carnaroli rice over here. If you have another kind of risotto rice, that'll absolutely work. I like carnaroli, and I was trained to use carnaroli because it has the highest starch content. Right? And therefore, it gives you the creamiest risotto, because risotto is all about that creaminess. So come in here, add that rice into that pan. Okay? And what we're going to do next is a very important step, right? It might seem almost insignificant, but this step is super important, and this is the toasting of the rice, right? So this rice over here, as we're stirring it up, right, every grain of rice is getting coated in that oil. All right, and we're applying just a little bit of heat to it, and what we're doing is we're really setting the starch on the outside of that rice, and we're bringing out the aroma of that rice as well. Okay, so this step, it might seem like a small step, almost an insignificant step, but it's super important. Always got to toast that rice. All right. So, toast that rice up. Right? Get over here. Get it stirring. Nice. Beautiful. So, now that I got my rice stirred up, the other thing you'll notice too is when your rice is properly toasted, it's going to start moving. Each grain is going to move by itself, right? It won't really clump up anymore. Each grain will kind of move by itself. And that's another telltale sign that your rice is beautifully toasted, okay? So, my rice is nice and toasted. You want to cook with all your senses too, so make sure you're smelling that risotto. Smells really nice, and it does have like a toastiness to it. Okay? So, what I'm going to do next is come over here, and I'm using about a half cup of dry white wine, right? Pop that right in there. This is the perfect amount. And what you want to do, once you get that wine in the pan, is turn the heat up all the way, okay? And we're going to reduce this wine until there's almost no liquid left, okay? This step right here is called deglazing. We're making sure if there is anything on the bottom of that pan that it's been removed from that pan and is emulsified in with our product, right? And also what we're doing here is we're cooking all the alcohol off of our risotto. So what I want you to do, once you add that wine to the pan, just lean in and give it a smell, right? Give it a big smell, okay? You'll probably be cursing my name after I tell you to do that. But do you feel the alcohol burn on the back of your nose, right? Lean in again if you don't smell it. You want to feel that, right? That is literally the alcohol touching the back of your nose, which is very sensitive, and kind of burning it, right? So you want to cook this wine all the way down until there's no more alcohol note on the back of your nose, right? And that lets us know that all the alcohol is gone and we just have the concentration of flavor, okay? So keep stirring, keep smelling, right? Mine's almost there. Still a little hint of alcohol, okay? I think I'm there now, right? Nice. See, now I don't get any of that alcohol note, right? I don't get any of that. I got my rice beautifully cooked over here, okay? And you can see there's almost no liquid left in the pan. My rice has absorbed the majority of it. My pan is almost dry, okay? So in French, we call this stage au sec, okay? It means almost dry. And that's where you want to bring your wine to if you're adding that to the pan, all the way down. Concentrate the flavor, right? This gives us a nice baseline acidity to this dish, okay? And it just gives us another additional nuanced flavor, right? Whenever you're building flavors, it's always helpful to think sometimes like you want your like star player flavors and then you want your supporting actors, okay? So something like this wine, when you're eating the risotto, you're never going to be like, wow, taste that delicious wine, right? It's going to be, but you're going to be like, wow, the flavor of this risotto is so complex, right? And those are all those little things, they all add together to create complexity. The wine, the shallot, using olive oil instead of canola oil, right? Or something like that. So all these little things, the toasting of the rice, right? They all add up because you want complex flavors, right? Not just one-off things, okay? So at this stage, right? Now that I got my wine at Olsek, I'm going to start adding my broth, okay? And some of you over there, you probably heard of risotto before, all about the stirring. That's exactly correct. So I'm going to begin that process over here with my first ladle of broth, okay? So I'm going to come over here, add a ladle of broth, right? And I'm on medium heat at this point, okay? I'm on medium heat. And what I want to do is basically maintain a nice simmer in this pan, okay? Just maintain a nice simmer over here. And I'm going to start stirring, okay? And I'm not going to stop until I only have one ladle left of that broth, okay? So what I'm looking for over here, I'm adding one ladle of broth. I'm stirring it in, right? Stirring that broth in. My rice is simmering, as you can see. And that first ladle of broth always gets absorbed very quickly, okay? So you can see over here, I'm almost all the way absorbed. Now I'm going to add my next ladle, okay? And again, back to stirring, okay? So we're going to continue on this process, adding those ladles of broth, stirring that risotto, right? And what we're going to do over here is we're going to coax the starch out of the rice, right? I always ask myself when I first started making risotto, I was like, why don't we just put all the broth in there at once? You know what I mean? Like, it's easier, it's faster, it's basically measured out, right? And honestly, the answer is yes. You know, if you do add all the broth at once, yes, you will have al dente risotto. But what you don't do is you don't allow yourself the opportunity to stir every grain of rice the same way, okay? And therefore, you don't have the opportunity to coax the starch out of each grain of rice, right? So, this is really the beauty of risotto. And the best way risotto was ever described to me when I was young kid cooking is risotto is rice suspended in sauce, okay? And you'll really see that with this dish. You want that rice to be in sauce, basically, right? And that's why, if you've ever heard of it before, you don't really ever want a risotto that's stiff and standing on top of itself. You want it to like let out, right? So, again, that's ladle number 2. I'm almost dry in my pan again. Now I'm adding my next ladle, okay? And you're probably noticing over here, you're getting that really beautiful yellow hue, right, in that risotto rice, and we're only going to build upon that, right? So it's only going to get more intense. So again, just keep stirring this risotto, right? This is a perfect time where if you have a sous chef that might need a project, okay, maybe they've been standing over there drinking wine the entire time, they need a project, right? Get them stirring. You got kids, right? Have them stir some risotto, right? They'll love it. And this is also too where we get our kind of arm workout in as well, okay? We got arm day over here. So again, just keep stirring that risotto. And I want you to keep stirring it until we only have 1 ladle of broth left, okay? So this process is going to take about 15 to 18 minutes, right? That's just how it is. So again, make sure you're on that nice simmer, right? Just like I am. Make sure you're simmering, make sure you're stirring, okay? Adding your next ladle once the first one has been absorbed. All right? So continue on just like this, right? And I will see you here in about 15 minutes. All right? So keep stirring over there, everyone. Alright, so we've been continuously stirring this risotto over here, and check out what I got over here. Look at this. Wow. Looking absolutely gorgeous, right? We have a lot of, we got that really nice risotto, right? And you can see how it's formed its own sauce over here. And this is exactly what I'm looking for, right? So at this stage, I'm gonna go ahead and taste a little bit of my risotto, right? And again, I've got one ladle of broth left. Okay, the rest of that broth is in my risotto. So I'm gonna go in here and give it a little taste, right? Mine is perfect. It's got that perfect al dente texture to it, which is rice that's chewy, right? But it's not crunchy and it's not mushy. That's al dente, okay? So mine is tasting absolutely delicious, all right? And you can see how mine's looking. So I'm gonna go ahead and just show it to the camera, that way you can see real quick. Look at that. Oh my gosh. You get that really nice saffron too. That really beautiful kind of fruity and earthiness at the same time. It's one of the most interesting flavors I've ever worked with. So, again, my risotto is looking gorgeous. I still have 1 cup off to the side. All we got left to do is finish up this dish out here. Okay, so if you are ready to get to finishing up this risotto, okay, we're in the last leg. Let's see a thumbs up out there. Oh. All right, so my risotto is to the point where it's almost dry again, okay? And that's very, very important that it's almost dry, right? So at this stage, what I'm gonna do is grab my butter. I'm gonna grab my butter out of my fridge, all right? And I'm gonna get all my other ingredients ready to go next to me, namely my Parmesan, right? And so this next step is super straightforward. I'm just gonna add the rest of that broth into the pan. All right. I'm gonna add the rest of that broth into the pan, and I'm just gonna bring this to a boil. Okay, so you can see I'm boiling, right? I just brought it to a boil, and I'm gonna turn the heat off, okay? That way I retain all that beautiful sauciness that's going on, okay? So, at this stage, now we're just gonna enrich this beautiful sauce that's been created. And we're gonna start with that butter, all right? So go ahead, add that butter into that pan, right? Again, the heat is off at this stage. Now I'm just gonna stir this butter into that risotto, all right? And you'll notice how that butter emulsifies into that sauce, and it makes that sauce nice and creamy and delicious, okay? We're just enriching that sauce that was already created by the risotto, which is that little bit of butter, right? This gives you that kind of fluffiness too. So, come in here, stir that butter in, and you want to keep stirring until you don't see the butter anymore, and that means it's fully emulsified, okay? Means it's nice and fully emulsified. So, again, keep stirring that in. Mine is almost done. Boom. So that's looking great. All right. So now I've got no more butter visible, right? I got this beautiful creamy risotto, right? But now I'm going to add my cheese. Okay, and when I add this cheese, the cheese is going to act as like my glue that brings everything together. Okay? So add that cheese to the pan and just stir that cheese in. All right? Just stir that cheese into that risotto. And now you can see It's that nice, beautiful rice suspended in sauce. Okay? So what I want to do next is come in here, get a quick taste, right? Get in there. So good. But now I need to season this dish, right? Because seasoning is really the difference. So what I want you to do first is taste it. Does it need a little salt, right? That's the first question you want to ask. Mine absolutely needs a little salt, right? So I'm going to add another pinch. That truffle salt, again, going up nice and up high. Because it actually tastes better if you're higher up, right? So stir that salt into that rice, okay? And then next what I'd like you to do is add a little bit of this champagne vinegar, okay? And this is like the secret ingredient in this dish. It's one of my favorites. So don't add all this vinegar. You literally want to add 2 or 3 drops and then stir it in and taste it, okay? So I'm coming in here, a little bit of vinegar. I'm going to stir that right in and I'm going to taste it, right? And that is our acid, which acid really lifts up flavors on your palate. So it takes the richness of this risotto and it really cuts through it and makes sure it's nice and evenly balanced. That's perfect. Wow. So at this point, you can see over here, I got this nice hot risotto, right? Looking absolutely gorgeous. If you want your risotto a little bit hotter, you can always turn the heat on nice and low. As low as it can go and just keep stirring. Okay, but with that, mine is looking gorgeous, so I'm going to come over here and plate up this dish, okay? So, I love using a plate for risotto because that's how they do it in Italy. It's a very classical way of serving risotto because this really shows off the rice suspended in sauce, right? This allows us to give that really nice saucy effect with this risotto. So I'm going to come over here, okay? I'm going to take this risotto and I'm just going to lay some of that risotto right into the center of that plate, okay? Boom. And a well-made risotto just spreads out very, very slowly and then it stops, okay? So just come over here, that risotto right on the plate, and then just take the back of your spoon, okay? And just even out that risotto, okay? Oh my gosh. Looking absolutely delicious, right? If you got any stragglers like this, you can use a towel, just push it right in. Boom. So I'm gonna come over here, bust open that lid of carpaccio, get a smell. Oof. Smelling beautiful, okay? And then now we're just gonna add a little truffle carpaccio to the top. So I'm gonna grab a fork, which really helps out with this, okay? And I'm just gonna lay out those slices of that carpaccio all over the top of this risotto. Alright, look at that. Boom. Absolutely stunning. Alright. Wow. And then last but not least, a couple finishing items. We got those nice, lovely chives. So I'm just going to go completely over the top. Okay, like I said, that green and that really bright yellow always work well off of each other, right? And we also have a final sprinkle of that truffle salt right over the top. And there you have it. Look at that. We got that beautiful looking risotto alla Milanese, right? That lovely saffron style risotto. We elevated it with a little bit of truffle and those beautiful sliced chives over there. So with that, right, I want to see your dishes out there. So I know I'm not there with you live, but Make sure you hold them up to the camera. Let's see those dishes, okay? If you want to bust out that camera and take some photos, right? Tag us at truffleshuffle_SF. We want to see those dishes out there, okay? So, with that, I hope you enjoy that risotto, okay? Oh yeah, look at that risotto.